everyone, and welcome to the second project vlog about making this Edwardian Downton Abbey Sybil-inspired harem pants ensemble. I need to come up with a better title for this project because that isn't very catchy, but that's what I've been calling it to myself. If you haven't already seen part 1 of making this project, I will link it down below, and if you have, then you can get right into this one. In this video, I'll be doing a lot more hand sewing, and I'll be going over the construction of the sleeves and the pants. You see the pants come together in this video, and quite a few rants about how much chiffon sucks to work with. There will be photos at the end of the video, in addition to blog posts linked down below with more information, more pictures about this project. So if you're interested in that, then definitely check that out. And I really hope you enjoy this video.
So this took me literally all day, but I managed to finish the beadwork on the bodice, or at least on this section of the bodice. As you can see, the trim is pretty densely embellished with sequins and a few seed beads. I seriously spent like 4 or 5 hours yesterday working on this, and then I spent an hour this morning just finishing it up while watching Game Grumps. So now it's finished, and I'm going to go ahead and sew this onto the collar today, and then there will be a little bit more beading around this top edge. And I will also have to hand stitch the eyelets into it, but that should go pretty quickly compared to all the embellishment work. But as I say that, I'm kind of worried that it will be difficult to do since there's so many beads on this. The thread will be really prone to getting sagged and caught on things while I'm trying to stitch them. So that might be a pain, but it should still go a little bit faster than the beading. And speaking of beading, the sleeves are finished. I sewed the lace onto them in the last video. Then I just sewed some sequins over the top edge of the lace to prevent the organza from fraying and to make it a little bit more sparkly. So I'm very happy with those, and I'm very happy with the bodice, and I'm really hoping that today I'll be able to get them sewn together, or at least get one step closer to doing that. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew on the collar. Actually, now that I think about it, I think I'm going to use a little bit of lace across the top edge, which means I have to find an appropriate lace, which means I have to get out my lace box, which is right here. And I don't think I've ever showed the interior of this on a video, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Ta-da! Isn't it beautiful? Now let me just see if I can find anything that will work for this project. So now the collar is pinned on, and I think I'm actually going to sew these together with an embroidery stitch, which will provide a prettier base for the sequins than just a normal straight stitch or whip stitch. I have some pink floss, which I'm going to use for the eyelets on this, so I might as well use it for this step as well. That shouldn't take me too long, but I'm not very good at embroidery, so we'll have to wait and see. So here's what we're currently working with. I got the collar attached, and then I sewed in the lining, so it's nice and finished on the interior. This took absolutely forever to do. I don't know why I decided to embroider that, because I'm so slow, but hopefully it will make the end result look a little bit prettier. And I know I said I was going to attach the sleeves today, but I realized that it's going to be easier to sew the eyelets first. So that's going to be my main priority, and then if I get that finished today, I'll consider sewing on the sleeves. But I want to do things in the order that will be the most convenient, even if that isn't what I originally said. So on the topic of eyelets, I'm going to go ahead and turn the back edge inward, and then I'm going to sew 2 boning channels, add the boning, and then I can get started sewing them. I think I'm going to make the boning and eyelets stop on the pink panel and then have the rest close with hooks or buttons. I just think that will look a little bit prettier and more delicate. The reason I want the back to lace up is because this bodice is quite fitted, and I'm hoping to wear it without a corset, so I think I'm going to be able to get the best fit if I use eyelets instead of hooks, and the eyelets also mean that I can get it on and off myself, which makes the whole process of getting dressed way easier. So that's my plan for that, and I'll show you when I have more progress to share. So I just bound the top edge of the sleeve so now it won't fray. I bound it with some lace tape, which isn't the best way of doing it, but it's a lot thinner than bias tape, so it'll look less bulky when the sleeve is sewn onto the bodice, which I like. And speaking of the bodice, I got the boning channel sewn in, and then I inserted the bone, and then I marked the eyelet placements. I don't think this will take me too long. There are only 12, I think, eyelets to sew, and then maybe 4 hooks and bars. No, maybe 5 hooks and bars. So that'll probably take me 2 hours or so. I usually allow 10 minutes per an eyelet, and I'm pretty slow at sewing on hooks, so it will probably be 2 or 3 hours. And then I'm going to go ahead and add sequins to this seam. So that's my plan for today, and I have a feeling it's going to take all day. But if I manage to get this done and feel motivated enough, I may work a little bit more on the sleeves today. It'll just depend. Hello everyone, so welcome to day 5 of making this costume. I got kind of a late start to this morning since I was doing hand sewing on the bodice, which unfortunately still isn't done. I'd really hoped to get all the hand sewing done last night, but it just didn't end up happening. So that's something to finish up today, and then hopefully later tonight I can get the sleeves on, but we'll have to wait and see. Today's main priority is working on the pants, and I went ahead and drafted the pants pattern this morning. So I didn't really have to do a whole lot of drafting since I just took my bloomer pattern, which I used for my 1890 cycling costume, and made it longer and made the crotch lower. So that's what I'm going with, and this is what they look like. And now I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I have enough chiffon to actually cut these panels out. I'm not completely sure that I do, so I'm gonna have to lay that out and see, and keep your fingers crossed for me. Hello, so it's quite a bit later now, and I haven't really updated you guys since this has been a frustrating and sort of mentally challenging process. A lot of thought just has to go into the way that things are sewn and how they're going to overlap, and it's a little bit more complicated than I was expecting it to be. And it's also made completely out of chiffon, and I hate working with chiffon, so it hasn't been the most enjoyable process, but it's coming along. I got the 2 front panels sewn together and the 2 back panels sewn together, and now I'm going to sew the front and back pieces together at the side seams, and then I'm going to try and figure out how the asymmetrical draping will go. I don't know if you can really tell, but this panel will be gathered down and draped differently than the other side, and then it will be the same case for this one. I don't think it's really going to make sense until you see it on a dress form, but I'm also not sure how well this will fit on my dress form since it is in fact pants, and I have a form made for dresses. Wish me luck, because I'm seriously kind of worried about how this is turning out, and I'm not feeling as confident as I'd like to be. So this probably doesn't look that great to anyone else, but I'm pretty happy with it. This is just the really rough version of what the waistline is going to look like, so how the pieces are going to overlap. And I think the key to getting this to work is going to be to gather the top down before sewing the crotch seam. And then after that's done, I'm going to hem the panel that is overlapping and also gather down the cuffs. So it's a really unconventional way of assembling a pair of pants, especially ones as poofy as this. But I think it's the only way that's going to work and really go together smoothly. So that's what I'm up to, and I'll show you what it looks like when I have more progress. I think to gather down the waistband, I'm going to use the new sewing foot that I got, which is a gathering foot, so I'm pretty excited about that. Hello everyone! So this morning I've already sewn the overlay to the lining layer of chiffon, and then I gathered the layers down, so the waistline is now 28 inches, which is what I want it to be. I also cut a slit into the side back, and then I covered that slit with ribbon, and now I'm going to sew hooks and bars onto the ribbon to keep the pants closed, and then I can attach it to the waistband and move on to doing the crotch seam and stuff. And I won't really be able to tell how they fit and how they look until after that step's done. So I'm kind of nervous, and I'm just trying to move through these steps so I can figure out how it will look, since I'm really eager to see that so I can stop worrying about it. So that's what's on the agenda for today. So I just finished sewing on the hooks and bars, and now it's time to cut out the waistband and get that attached. So I'm on the floor now, and I just did some weird pinning with the pant leg, and now I'm going to try and sew the crotch seam, and I'm really hoping that it'll work. I did cut the crotch seam to be slightly higher since I thought it was too low, and I'm going to sew it with a relatively large seam allowance, and we'll see how it turns out. Good morning, so let me show you what I've been up to. It's day 7 of working on this project, and I'm finally seeing things start to come together. So I went ahead and tried on the sleeves, and I realized that they're a little bit too small, which I sort of knew before embellishing them. So instead of sewing them together with a 1-inch seam allowance, I used a 1/2-inch seam allowance. And they fit perfectly, but unfortunately this means there is some visible top stitching from when I was securing the chiffon to the lace, and that won't be hidden in the seam allowance since the seam allowance is smaller than I'd expected originally. So that's unfortunate, but it will fall underneath the arm, so it won't be too noticeable. I'm not going to bother and try and fix it and potentially damage the fabric whilst doing that. Since I only had a 1/2 inch of seam allowance, I did this up with a normal seam instead of a French seam, and I'm going to go ahead and bind the edge with some lace. When it comes to the pants, I'm not thrilled with how they've turned out. I think they're a little bit too long and there's just too much fullness in them. And now that I think about it, I really should have used an opaque lining instead of chiffon. So these aren't my favorite part of the costume by any means, but I did go ahead and get the cuffs gathered. And I gathered them to be 13 inches, which is 3 inches larger than my ankle, but they have to be larger than my ankle to fit over my foot. And I was going to attach a cuff to them and have them close with hooks and bars. I tried doing that and it didn't look very good since it forced the pants to sit higher on my leg, and the excess chiffon actually looped over and completely covered the cuff. So I ripped the cuff off, and now I think I'm just going to bind this edge and leave it relatively loose, and that way it can sit lower on my leg and it will look a little bit more flattering. The cuff itself won't look very nice, but since it's hidden by folds of fabric, it doesn't really have to look that nice. So I think this is my new plan, and that's what I'm going to do now. And when that's finished, I just have to hem the portions that overlap, and then the pants will be done. So that's pretty exciting. Guys, I have pants! They look more like a dress when my legs are together, but from the side I think they look pretty good. I'm gonna eventually wear these with knee-length Spanx so you won't see anything underneath them. But yeah, I'm not thrilled with how these turned out. I think they need to be about 2 inches shorter, but I don't think I can really take them up from the waistline at this stage, so yeah, not my best work, but I do think they look passable, and I really like the bodice, so I'm hoping when they're worn together it's really gonna create a very finished, pretty ensemble, even if I don't love the bottom half of it. So that's my plan, and now I'm gonna go ahead and attach the sleeves to the bodice. Also, there's a little puppy! The neighbors are cutting down trees and she's freaking out, so that's why she's in here today. So I just got the sleeves on, and that means that this costume's finished! Well, that isn't completely the truth. I've noticed a little bit of loose beading on this front little piece of trim, so I think I'm going to fix that, and I'm probably going to embellish another piece of trim like this and then use that as some sort of hair piece, either mounted on a headband and paired with some feathers, or as a hair clip just to decorate the do. So that's what I have left to do on this project, but I think that's where this video is going to end. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I think the textures in it are really cute, and I really like how all the materials work together and how sparkly it is. It was a lot of work, and it was a very hand-sewing intensive project, more so than I'd originally realized, but I did manage to accomplish it from concept to completion in 7 days, which I'm thrilled with. And even though I don't love the pants, I think they work for this project, and they complement the bodice really nicely. If I've taken worn photos of this project by the time this video goes up, then I'll include them now. And if I don't, then I will link some in the description box down below, in addition to the first video about making this costume, and blog posts that go into more information on the construction process. So if any of that interests you, then definitely check out the description box, and thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing how this costume came together. And if you enjoyed this type of video, then definitely let me know, because I would be up for doing more of them in the future. They're probably my favorite types of videos to film. So thanks again for watching, and I shall talk to you all very soon.